Hello and welcome to Talking Crit with Bad Mike, North Texas RPG Con. Bad Mike. The Blinker. The Blinker that blinks at midnight. And myself, Eric Tenkar. We'll be talking about the normal bags of shit and not so much bags of shit in the hobby. But
we can preview the next few weeks when we'll be back to special guests.
Yeah.
I mean, so the thing about Eric and I is we don't care if we have special guests. We love special guests.
Yes.
But if you see us on here without special guests, it's not like we called up 10 people and they all said no. It was because we didn't really have time to get a special guest, or we just didn't think about it in time.
Or the schedule's not the schedule. No, we have people that want to be on the show, but their schedules.
Sure.
Unlike Mike and I, where we've penciled out every Wednesday.
Yeah, what else we got going? Nothing.
Yeah, to yabber with you all.
Nothing at all.
Yeah. In my case, I was like, oh wait, Mike and I are doing Talking Crit tonight. She's like, do we have time to watch another episode of The Hunters on Amazon Prime? I'm like, well, being that the episodes are just over an hour long, maybe half an episode. We'll come back to it after the podcast. Which, by the way, is something that I started watching back when I was initially sick and I could not get into it. I watched like an episode and a half and said, screw it. And now I'm watching it and I'm going, wow, this is pretty good. And I'm
there's a fun 70s vibe to it. It's absolutely batshit crazy show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's nuts. It's nuts.
It is.
It's about Nazi hunters in 70s New York, but it goes off the rails. It's like way speculative, but it's still fun because my wife and I love anything 70s that really does a good job.
It does a good job of the 70s
and it does, definitely does.
And, the subway scene, I was like, oh my God, I remember subways when they looked this bad.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. It was 70s. That was 40 years ago. Yeah, it was New York City was synonymous with yikes. It's scary.
Yeah, it was when you would drive through the South Bronx and the Cross Bronx Expressway, and all you would see are either burned down buildings or the wreckage of buildings, and go, man, I just don't want to get stuck here.
Is it all gentrified now? It's back to
a lot of it is, or a lot of it was. Some parts of it are.
Hello, Charlie.
Are less so, but it is what it is.
I'm going to throw out there, I will be blinking a lot tonight. I have developed allergies on the beach, so I guess I'm not meant for the beach life. This will be our fourth week on the beach. We have to come back, unfortunately. Sadly, we have to come back. I'm going to lose my bronze tan. But I have developed an allergy to something in the air down here in the last week or so, and I've been taking allergy medicine, but I cannot stop blinking. So I am sorry if it's distracting. I would have worn my sunglasses, but I lost them the other day, so I lost my sunglasses. Can't wear my sunglasses, otherwise I'd look really, really cool and had sunglasses on. So
you aren't like blinking to try to pick somebody up, right? You're not like that. Doing like
that's not like a Morse code.
Yeah,
Charlie.
I'd like to tell you.
I'm going to send you a message, Charlie. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. And Mr. Bloodworth is here.
But anyway, so back to we'll sidetrack a lot. We hex crawl this thing, but
yes.
For those who don't know, we do have guests next two shows penciled in. Can we say who the guests are yet?
Joe the lawyer should be on, I believe, next Wednesday. And
Joe's always fun.
And Joe and I are going to be starting a Friday night live stream. It's going to be every second and fourth Friday of the month. Tentatively called Iron Rations, because when you bought it, you usually bought 2 weeks worth.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not going to say we're going to taste great, but we will certainly give you sustenance throughout the week. It'll be fun.
I love Joe's comments he leaves for you, and you and Joe will that'll be fun. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, so Joe should hopefully be on the show next week, and Tim Conley, Benchley-Dale Academy. We currently have penciled in for 2 weeks from today. Tim is somebody who was involved with the new TSR when it came out. And pretty much is very much an old school gamer. I gamed with him when he was out in Long Island and had a blast. So it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, he's been doing this Benchley-Dale thing for a while. And it looks... I've read his Facebook post for years now. It looks really, really fun. Yeah, so I'm interested in having Tim on there too. That's gonna be fun. Talk to
And
him.
we have other guests that are, I'm going to say, we're not going to name them, but they are penciled in with the date to be determined, but they would be.
Which basically means we had a lot of people say, "Yeah, I'd love to be on your show," but we just haven't finalized anything.
Right.
These
are actually people not only just with like real jobs.
They're real people too, not imaginary people. We do
no,
not
no, they're real. They're real people who you will all know and love. And hell, I'm just flattered that we've got the yes, I'd love to be on your show. No, I can't give you a date yet because I was just going to put together.
That's better than hell no, I don't want to be on your show ever.
Yes, it's like, I've seen the two of you, and as entertaining as you are.
That train wreck I am not jumping on.
I don't want to be a part of that. So, as usual, the prep for Mike and I, and this was about 5 minutes. But one thing, but I shouldn't say that because we've been prepping inadvertently throughout the week.
We do send messages every once in a while. We talk to each
other. A lot of it is, holy shit, did you just see this Facebook post about yada, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. And I think the big news today, or at least this week, the news of the week, we should have theme music for this, by the way, because Wizards of the Coast seems to always come up on a weekly basis. Mm-hmm. Tasha's
WotC's fuck up of the week.
Yes.
We have music for that. Wah, wah, wah.
Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. I'm not hoping. There were a couple of Tasha's releases, but I believe this is the latest one. Mm-hmm. A large number of the books have been physically defective, is the best way to put it. Or, as some collectors have put it, totally uncollectible and a waste of my money.
Right. And there was a thread on this. I tried to contact some of the people on the thread. It didn't have enough lead time to contact it. I did contact somebody else I know and trust in the industry and asked them if they'd heard anything about this. They said they have 4 copies and they're in perfect shape. And so they suggested it was a batch issue, which could be true, which means that, because I know working for Frog God, we have the same issues. Sometimes you get a bad batch comes through, and usually it's regional. It'll be like all the ones in Texas or all the ones on the East Coast type of thing. I don't know if that's true or not, but there has been a huge amount of complaints about the printing quality of Tasha. And we saw the pictures. Basically, the issue you got is the binding is wavy. You get wavy pages, which is a binding issue.
Right. It's not something that you're going to blame on UPS or the Postal Service. They didn't fuck it up. This is stuff that came off the printing press, and for one reason or another, they looked warped, basically what it comes down to. But not warped in the, like, I just remembered I left my gaming books in the basement for 10 years.
Right.
And we had the flood. Time for me to check on my books type of deal. As more like, you left your gaming book in the bathroom as you showered.
Humidity got into it. It kind of did that little wave. I'm trying to find a book here to demonstrate, but I don't have anything here near me that's even close to where these are Frog God books. They're all in great shape. But yeah, it's one of those things. If you want a perfect copy, you're going to have a hell of a time finding a perfect copy. And from what I heard, retailers were told that the run was going to be reprinted, and because there were so many complaints from retailers who got a whole case of them, and every one of them had the waviness in it.
But now, retailers being told they're going to reprint it doesn't necessarily mean that consumers are going to get their money back.
No, it doesn't mean that at all. No, it doesn't. And so so I know people have ordered off Amazon, and the problem is Amazon will take returns for about anything. So they've returned it. The problem is they're on return number 3 or 4 at this point, and they're getting the exact same type of book back. So they're getting not diminishing returns; they're just getting the same book over and over again. So it's very frustrating for them. They're not getting a book that doesn't have the waviness.
Right.
So yeah, and we've seen this problem before with some major releases in the last few years. It's funny how all the books we used to get back in the day were all in great shape. There was some fiascos. I don't know if you remember, but the first printing of Unearthed Arcana is famous for basically falling apart. The pages just fell out of the book, which is why there was a second printing. And you can almost always tell there's not a lot of first printing Unearthed Arcanas out there still because they've fallen apart over the years.
Was it the spine? I think the spine of mine is gone.
And it had really bad binding. That first print, there was something up, and so that this isn't a new problem. It didn't happen a lot back in the day, but yeah, there's. I want to say it might have been Oriental Adventures that also had some issues with the hardcover. But TSR's had some. I remember their Splat books. They had some bad issues with some of the Splat book printings that came out in the late '80s, early '90s.
I had one that the glue just didn't.
Yeah, the glue just
together.
Pop off.
You
have a cover in one hand and the book in the other hand.
Yeah, it's like I've got the first 30 pages here and the last 90 pages here. What am I gonna do? It's not like you could go. Well, not that I would even bother today. I wouldn't bother rebinding anything. But it was just kind of like, and it is buyer beware because, especially back then, as a consumer, what were you going to do? Take it back to where you bought it from? Especially if it happens 6 months down the line. Happened to your first 6 days, sure, you can probably bring it back to B. Dalton's or Barnes and Noble or Dalton Books. Oh my God, I'm really dating myself.
All the old names for a piece of duct tape used to just help us out back then. I mean, we would use books that were falling apart. We didn't care. We would just stick duct tape on it. I had a guy who used to re-sew his books. He would sew them, and so we went to all these different lengths just to keep the books going because as long as the pages turned and it, was in reasonable good shape, we could use it. So nowadays people are much pickier about what they get. Which it's a right as a consumer to be that way. I mean, you want to get your money's worth.
But you know what still blows my mind is that the initial Facebook poster, if I remember correctly, I got 3 copies and they all look like this, and I was like, "Why are you buying?" All right, I can understand buying 2. Again, you can use one as a quote collectible and one as a play copy. Somebody else bought 4, but here's my thoughts on it. Okay, nothing that you're buying from Wizards of the Coast these days is going to be fucking collectible 20 years down the line. Not unless they're going to all fall apart and you're going to say, well, the first print 90% was shit, and if you got that 10%, you got money in the bag. All right, maybe. But otherwise, it's all mass-produced schlock. I'm not saying the quality of what's inside is bad, but there's not going to be a secondary market for this stuff. I think we saw that market even with comic books and baseball cards collapse under its own weight.
Well, there's a market in the short term, which is interesting because the person I talked to had bought 4 copies, and that's why they said, "Oh, all my 4 copies were great." And I'm like thinking, "Why are you buying 4 copies?" But the problem is these books have been the latest WotC books have been selling out. I mean, they're sold out. Like you can't get any more, and so they're buying them for friends, or they're buying them to make this person I talked to wasn't buying for resale. They don't need the money.
Right.
But you might be buying it for your friends. Hey, my friends. Maybe by the time they get around to buying it, they're going to be sold out because that has happened with a few recent books, but more the special printings than the regular printings. But there's been a lot of special printing stuff that has sold out.
All right, and special printings I can see because they're generally a limited run. But if it's something that's being, dare I say, mass produced, if it's something that you cover price $49, Amazon has it for $26 with a $5 coupon, like Tasha's was going for, or something like that. It was ridiculously low in price. Those, 3 copies or 4 copies, if you're getting them for collectible reasons. I just don't. No. I don't see it.
You see that a lot. Like I said, the WotC books, and there's a few that are out of print now. Some of the earlier WotC collections that go for quite a bit of money now. So, like I said, but that's short term. Maybe people thinking in the short term, this is something that I'd like to speculate on, and
maybe
flip it for double price.
Oh, especially if you're getting it at Amazon for half cover.
Sure, if you get it for cheap at Amazon,
and then you can So I'm getting a $50 book for $25. So I can flip it for $40, and I had free shipping on it anyway. I've made $15. I can see the science behind it. I just think it's a lot of effort for nickel and dime profits.
This is it. This comes on the heels of a few other WotC mishaps. I mean, but I was real quick. Just went through my mind was the Pathfinder had some horrific printing issues with their 2.0 book.
Oh yeah,
where they had to basically redo the entire print run. I mean, they were bad issues. I mean, the books just fell to pieces, and we're talking a fairly expensive book. So this is something you definitely want to nip in the bud. If you do have a problem, you want to make sure that it doesn't get out there. They're putting out defective books because you're putting out expensive books. These are pricey books. You don't want somebody dropping half $100 on something that's going to fall apart 2 weeks after they get out of the bookstore.
And usually when it comes to something like that, it is. And again, I'm not saying this is happening in this case. It's usually because a change of printers or the printer changed where they're sourcing their material from.
Right.
Everybody's trying to maximize a profit. And if you can save 50 cents per book over the course of 10,000 books, you're saving $5,000. It's significant savings. Don't get me wrong. None of these companies are making a huge amount of money, which brings to bring up another topic later, I think, when it comes to rumors about Wizards of the Coast that have been floating around a little bit. But the problem is you take a gamble when you change where you're sourcing something from, because once in this case, I have a good printer. I know I know that I'm not going to have more than the usual number of defects. Oh, I can save $1 a book if I print it through XYZ. Let me go through XYZ, and then you got to replace 20% of your print run. That money that you saved,
you're not saving it. No. And the dirty little secret of the printing industry is almost all printing is done in China. It's just got the best rates, the cheapest rates. The problem with printing in China this year is because of the COVID crisis. Everything was. I mean, the China's factory shut down for months, or at least weeks. I mean, for quite a while, and then everything got backed up, and the shipments that come over by boat, I mean, take forever. That's been a big issue. I don't know where WotC does a printing. I would suspect somewhere in China. Or Chinese. I'd
actually have to buy one of the recent books and look to see print it in. But since I don't buy them because I don't really play 5e, again, not a bad system. Just not a system that I feel comfortable running with. And if I'm going to play it, all I need is the player's handbook as a player. So I'm probably good.
So we had the rumors. I don't know where the rumors came from. Did you start this rumor, Tenkar?
I didn't start the fire.
We talked about 2 weeks ago.
ICV2, which is a website that you go to a lot to find out how sales are in the industry, what's going up. It hits the retailers, sales and all stuff. Hey, David, how you doing? Thanks for joining us. It is a great site for that stuff, and they had an article basically saying that with no named sources. I mean, the source could have been the writer of the article, throwing out the is Wizards of the Coast for sale?
Right.
And Mike and I have solicited opinions from people a bit more knowledgeable in the industry than either one of us are individually. And I've also spitballed it, because I've seen people say, well, the only company that in the hobby that could probably afford Wizards of the Coast is Paizo. No. Okay. And I'm going to tell you from what I've heard over at least as of 2 years ago, the Paizo MMORPG was a huge money sink for Paizo, and took basically we made a profit, put it into the MMO, and what happened was rumors have it, and I am not saying this is definite, this is rumors, but rumors had it that Elisa Stevens was writing payroll checks from her own personal checking account for a while, because the Paizo Till was bare. This is I believe, right before 2.0 came out. It was, or at least, or 2.0 was announced. I think it was.
Yeah.
I think it was right before the 2.0 announcement, which probably didn't help either. When your current market of Pathfinder 1 books are no longer going to be earning you money when people go, oh, we're abandoning the system, but she doesn't have the money. However, and I will say this, if somebody could get a coalition together or get private investors, because you'd probably need private equity funds to grab Wizards of the Coast, especially if you're bringing Magic the Gathering along with it. Somebody like Lisa would probably be somebody you'd want in organizing that. But again, I have no inside information on that one. Okay, PFO was a complete disaster. The game sucked. Nowhere near complete when it launched. I don't think. Listen, when it launched, my understanding is it wasn't even. It was barely an alpha. It wasn't even a beta. But they had to get it out because they had promised product. Backers wanted it. But here's the thing that people forget too. When this was pushed on Kickstarter, and I believe the funding goal was $1 million, the reality is $1 million did not fund that game. Okay?
No.
What $1 million basically funded a proof of concept, which is what the players got. It is $1 million was supposed to get it ready to get investors to come in and go, woohoo! And the problem is Pathfinder is certainly well known amongst RPGers and D&D players, but it doesn't have the same kind of marketability that the D&D trademark does. Dungeons and Dragons doesn't have that.
Right. When Eric and I talk about how nobody makes any money in the gaming industry except for 3 or 4 or 5 people, Lisa Stevens is one of those 3 or 4 or 5 people. She had the money to write the check to do this, but it's highly unusual in this industry. But that's and probably shouldn't have written the check. It just turns out because that thing just crashed and burned. I mean, it just didn't work. And most video games. There's some successful companies out there, like Bethesda and EA Sports, stuff like that. They are able to keep going because they are building off every release is paying for the release next year. And they have lead times of years. I mean, Skyrim, which one of my favorite games ever, each edition of Skyrim takes like 7 or 8 years to program. I mean, that's how long it takes to get those games out. A little company that only has 1 or 2 games can't afford that. They can't afford really any missteps. They can't. No. They have to get the game out and make the money, and so they usually do it in parts. They're doing, this part, then they get some more funding. They do another part. They get some more funding. Do another part. They're not like these big game companies that can just churn these out, or not really churn out, but they have a plan. I mean, like I said, Bethesda Games does Fallout. They do Skyrim, and they take years and years and years, and they have people work full time on these games. Most game companies aren't like that. The smaller ones are not like that at all. That they contract a game, and they pay for it. And sometimes games, and a lot of our friends that went from TSR to the Coleco and gaming industry back in the 80s and 90s. They worked for years on projects, and I think Steve Winter, was it Steve Winter? Or Janelle Jaquays told me about a project she worked on for years. It just went belly up after like 3 or 4 years. Nothing. I mean, they worked and worked and worked and did coding and everything. And after about 3 years, like, yep, it's not going to work. We don't have the funding. So it wasn't surprising that didn't make it because, as you said, Eric, it just doesn't have the name recognition. I bet it was really hard to get funds for that, to get that going. Now, if it had been a D&D one, right, with Dungeons and Dragons in the name and behind it, I think you'd have seen something different with that. But and
part of the issue is, and this is not uncommon in our hobby, there are people, and I'm not going to name names, but if you've been following stuff the last couple of years, you'll figure this one out pretty easily, that are well known in our hobby, are of great repute for their abilities to create, even though most of their creations were years ago. And they bank on their reputation to drive sales or drive backing for a product or a project. And here's the issue with that. Yes, within your niche of gaming, you are a demigod. But outside of that niche of gaming, if we're talking character levels, you're barely a veteran. You're level 4. I mean, people go, "Oh yeah, I know John Smith. Wasn't he involved in SRT, WTSR? Yeah, the first company that published Dungeons and Dragons for the first time in the late 80s. You mean 1973, 74? Oh, well, maybe. I think I know who you're talking about. I mean, they don't know. So again, it's one thing to be a big fish in a small pond, but once you leave that small pond and you try to get money from the Great Lakes, you realize that you don't have the influence you have. And I think that we all think, my God, Paizo. No, Paizo is yes, they have the money where they can have a payroll. Steve Jackson Games can actually have warehouse staffs, and people that are on staff as creators, and that's great. But they don't have the money to buy a trademark. Remember, Dungeons and Dragons has more value as a trademark.
Well, not only that, if you saw Dungeons and Dragons sold, here's what you're not going to see sold with it. Magic's not going to be sold with it. Magic the Gathering.
No.
And Pokemon. All that's the Pokemon stuff. No. They make Dungeons and Dragons numbers look silly. The numbers for Magic and stuff like the card games like Pokemon, stuff like that. That makes D&D numbers look just ludicrous.
Right.
Those would not go. Those would stay. Those would be broken off, and those are going to stay with Hasbro no matter what. Hasbro's never letting those go. They're just not going to. So what you're basically, for a sale, I think what you're looking at is D&D, anything D&D related or Dungeons & Dragons related, probably the board game stuff, anything like that. And I it's just the person I talk to is pretty
wired in.
We have our connections.
Yeah,
Eric and I, we do have connections. Yes, very wired in, and off the record did tell me that this doesn't look like it's going to happen because of various reasons Eric and I talked about, but just mainly because right now it's just a bad time to. It's really a bad time to sell this. I mean,
right. They're not going to get maximum
just
value,
making everything not really work the way it's supposed to be working. Normally, if you came out and said, "Yeah, we're going to sell Dungeons and Dragons," you get some huge bids and some huge interest. But right now, everybody's kind of turtling in. They're waiting to see what happens. Is there going to be a vaccine next year? Are we going to have jobs next year?
Yeah.
We're still going to have virtual cons going through 2021 because make no mistake, in-person cons drive a lot of sales and a lot of interest in stuff. If you have virtual cons for another year, people are going to be pulling back even farther, I think, because it cuts into your bottom dollar because it's advertising. It's advertising.
It is.
There's a lot of issues connected with virtual.
And here's the thing: the thing about conventions is that a lot of people, especially non-convention goers, maybe don't always realize this, but you get FaceTime, you get to shake the hand of people in the industry who, when I was a younger gamer, I would have, shat my pants if like Frank Metzner or Tim Kask actually knew who I was. Oh my, fucking God. But you get to meet these people at conventions. I mean, when at my one Gen Con, I got to meet the Kevin Ciambata and Kevin Long from Palladium at the time, and picked up riffs and had it signed by the team. And Dale Slade Henson of TSR, because he was running the Spelljammer model combat and had to go take a leak and asked me to cover for him, and then came back a half an hour later with a soda and after a smoke break, I think. But these are people whose names that you recognize from the products. Well, a lot of these people don't do things like this. They don't do live streams. They don't do interviews online, but they do go to conventions. And they go to conventions for a few perks. They aren't large perks, but generally speaking, Free admission, free room, and free food, and get to I hate to say it like this, but bask in the adulation of their fans. But again, it's our pond, right? So we know the big fish in our pond, and we want to spend time with them. And you don't have that physical ability, that connection to meet and greet these people.
I'm not saying that sales face to face everything, because let's face it. WotC didn't show up for any conventions last year because there hadn't been any, and I don't think their sales have suffered necessarily. It's just that, especially when you get to the lower tier, mid tier game companies, they really rely on FaceTime. Is very important to shake hands and talk to people and demonstrate your game. There's a lot of sales made after, once games are played or just at the table. Eric and I have worked the table at Frog God Games. We know how that works. People come up and they're curious about this, and this. You talk to them for 5 minutes, and boom, they walk away with $100 worth of books.
I ran Session of Swords with Your Light for a 5e table at GaryCon. They weren't expecting it, and half my table came back. Two came back right immediately after the game. Went back to the Frog God table and picked up Swords and Wizardry Complete rule books and some other stuff, and 2 others came by the next day and picked up stuff. That drives sales. And now you're probably going, well, yeah, but how much does the convention sales really do? I got news for you. It isn't so much the amount of sales that you make when it comes to dollar value at a convention. It's the amount of people that you interact with and that you make a connection with that makes a difference, because they're the customers that can come back to your website, your online store, or find your stuff on Amazon and buy it. If you don't make that connection, it's hard.
A lot of people go to cons and they don't even buy anything at the con. They just look at things and they make notes and they go on Amazon later and buy it at a steep discount, which it's kind of sad, but that's what happens. But this is why the sale of right now is not practical, just because things are really messed up right now. Nobody knows that the new normal is not anything anybody recognizes. Nobody knows what to do. Nobody knows, is this a buyer's market? Is this a seller's market? Is this the right time to drop something like this? Is it the right time to pick up something like this? Nobody's going to know until there's a vaccine, there's people getting cured, and things get relatively back to normal. So the consensus, the people I talk to, is that this is not the best time to be doing this. And so probably not. This is probably not really a story. It's just speculation. It's speculation, which is fun to speculate. Eric and I do it all the time. It's fun. You sit there and you say, what if this? Now, of course, if it gets sold next week, we're going to look idiotic.
Oh, yeah, we will. But there's another reason why.
There doesn't seem to be any. I just didn't get the feeling talking to the people I talked to.
Here's the thing: the IP when it comes to movies is tied up in a movie that's supposed to be coming out in the spring of 2022. So here's the deal: if you sell off Wizards of the Coast, or if you just sell off the D&D brand, it's still tied up in a movie. And remember, something like D&D, the money is not just a movie. The money is the sales of action figures, miniatures, board games, whatever else is going to come out of that movie. And Hasbro is banking on that money. So I personally think, my humble opinion, again, no inside information, is that these breaking of contracts or these non-breaking of contracts in a fuck you manner with Weiss and Hickman over Dragonlance and Gale Force 9 and whatever comes before the end of the year, because this shit comes in threes. I think it is Hasbro exerting more day-to-day management over Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast runs as its own company within the larger company, and I think Hasbro is tamping down on that. That's just my opinion. And I get that feeling because I worked retail for 8.5 years before I did law enforcement. And the company that I worked for, Stearns, was one of many companies that were part of Allied and then were part of Federated, which became New Federated. Changing of owners changes how things were run. But under Allied, each company's division, whether it was Stearns, A&S, Orbax, whatever, Mays, they all were supposed to compete with each other as if they were different entities. But A&S, which was a New York chain at the time, was actually a different entity. It was a company that was not just created; it was bought and owned as a separate one. So,
sure,
corporate, you could chop it off. So, when they merged with Macy's Federated and they picked up Macy's as a chain, the first thing they did was they killed A&S because it was the simplest thing to kill corporate-wise because it was its own entity. And then slowly they rebranded every other chain within the company to be Macy's because Macy's had that nationwide oomph behind it, which the other chains did not. I could see a bit of an opposite going on right now with Hasbro because they've taken the board games away from Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah.
Even the D&D themed board games or the D&D branded board games aren't being published by Wizards of the Coast. They're being published by Hasbro. Avalon Hill.
They're too successful. They were too successful in making too much money to let WotC have them.
Right.
They had to take them back.
Right, because Hasbro has experience with board games. Hasbro does not understand RPGs. It's a whole different world of oomph. So...
Yeah, they may. I mean, this is just spitballing here, but they may still be of the mindset that this new I mean, board games have been around for 60, 70, 80 years. RPGs have only been around 40 years. This may still be a flash in the pan that doesn't really, I mean, how many copies have they sold of Monopoly and Sorry and Yahtzee and Stratego over the years? And yeah, okay, great, D&D is great for right now, but is this people still going to be doing this in 20, 30 years? They're going to still be buying another copy of Monopoly. I mean, so that I think it's really hard to convince them that this has any staying power until it's. I mean, they have to be impressed. I mean, it's done better than it's ever done in history. I mean, D&D is selling more right now than it's ever sold in history. So that they have to be impressed by the fact that it's because when they first bought it, it was just a little trickle of money. Now you got
right.
Now it's covering all kind, like you said, it's covering all kinds of the spectrum of merchandise and movies and I wanted to say sitcoms. We haven't a sitcom yet, but I mean, Critical Role is kind of a sitcom, really.
Yeah, it is.
And that's huge online. And I mean, huge enough for them to finance their own comic book, which is their own. I mean, so yeah, it's all there. It's just the pieces. I mean, the pieces are there. Something's going on. There's something going on for this contract. It could be just as simple as, like you said, Big Daddy Hasbro looked down and said, "Whoa, what are these contracts you're writing?
Yeah.
we don't want what you're paying the Hickman and Weiss how much? Yeah, Gale Force 9's making what? No. That's not. No, we're not. We don't do business like that. No. We're out of that. Just we're going to do some lawyer stuff. We're going to say, hey, guess what? We're not going to say no. You can't publish this, but we're not going to okay anything. That kind of. So it's going to be lawyer speak. Basically, getting out of the contract. And you're right. There's probably other stuff on the horizon. This is not going to be the end of this. But that probably is all it is. It might be all it is. I mean, because look, you have a crisis like COVID crisis, and you take that time to reassess everything. You go through there and say, okay, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? Very few companies, unless you're Bezos and Amazon, very few companies or Home Depot. Good Lord, the Home Depot down the street from my house has been packed every day.
Walmart
for the past few months because everybody's doing fixing their house up because they got nothing else. They're all stuck at home. I mean, there's a few companies that made a lot of money during the COVID crisis, but I think 80% of them didn't. And so you look at it and say, okay, what can we do differently, or where are we losing money? And this is just a time to reflect and take the bean counters in there and the consultants and look in there and say, oh, you signed this, we did this 3 years ago. Whoa, no. We don't care anymore. We don't care about Dragonlance anymore. That was a great idea. And you also see this problem. I know working retail. I mean, when Eric got to work retail, you're probably rolling your eyes going, okay, yeah, you guys work retail. We're talking about multi-billion-dollar companies, but everything's trickled down. And the whole thing is work retail is, you always knew when there's a change in management because all of a sudden you got all these new rules to follow. And then because the people that come in have to justify their worth or the fact that they're making money doing something. So they issue these edicts that a lot of them are stupid. They're just absolutely idiotically stupid because they don't really know what they're doing. They just know they have to do something. Because I remember worked for a company called Record Bar in the 80s and 90s, which used to be a really big regional music store. Of course, they got all sucked together and I think Blockbuster bought everybody in the end, but they bought Record Bar, bought Music Land, all those companies. but we had a change of management one day because we get these rules that come down that we all have to wear ties and have our hair cut. And I mean, some of the guys there look like Robert Plant. I mean, they had like long hair. And that. They're like, I ain't cutting my hair. They quit. They just said, you got to cut your hair. You got to wear a tie. We're like, this is a music store, right? Like we sell like rock music and we have to talk to kids a lot. And, we don't look like an FBI agent. And so finally, after we lost all our best salesmen who all quit and went to Music Land because they didn't require to cut your hair. Then after about a month, they said, well, forget about that. We're not going to, you don't have to cut your hair or wear a tie. I'm like, oh, great. Well,
I already cut my hair. So.
These guys either already cut their hair or they quit. They left because I look like Robert Plant. I'm not going to cut my hair. My hair's, I got this long blonde hair down to my waist or whatever.
It took me a long time to grow it.
But all these companies do this. Somebody new comes in, they have to justify, their existence. And so they, so it could be any number of these things. It could be none of these things, or it could be all of these things, or it could be some of these things. But that's what happens. Is it every once in a while these kind of number crunching things happen, and people get caught in the middle. And unfortunately, people like Weiss and Hickman and Gale Force, and there's going to be somebody else. You just know it. There'll be another one.
Come on, the end of the year is coming. We got to get our trifecta in.
Well, and also look at and that's a good point. You look at the end of the year. That's of course you got your quarter coming up. You got your fourth quarter coming up. You got that's a lot of times that's your most important quarter, is the last quarter of the year. You got to see what's been going on in the first three quarters and say, okay, how can I cook the books to make things either look worse than they are or look better than they are? And so somebody's probably saying we need to get all this stuff done before the end of the year. We need to get this to get these things taken care of before Christmas rolls around. And
and we're talking about that, and like you said, we're in the midst of the world of COVID, and it is certainly affecting. I don't know, not necessarily mom and pop stores, but they are affected. But the smaller retail stores, whether it's gaming or anything, are the ones that are suffering. Yes, your chains will get through the pandemic, but
all that money went to Amazon. All that mom and pop money went to Amazon. There has been an absolute just self-destruction of game stores, of mom and pop stores, because they just can't compete. I mean, they don't have the resources necessary to, I mean, the reason you go to your local game stores, you want to, you get out of the house, you want to get away from the wife and kids, you just want to hang out for a while. Well, there's no hanging out. You can't hang out anymore. And so you look at Amazon like, well, I can buy the same books I buy in my game store, for a quarter of the price. I mean, I love to talk to the guy who owns the store and the people in there, but they're not there. So I still want to buy my game books, and I want to buy my comics, and I want to buy my dice. I'll just buy them off Amazon, and just absolutely killed the mom and pop game store. I mean, we've heard over the past 8 months, we keep hearing just awful stories of game stores. I mean, some were able to adapt. Some actually are able to survive, but depending on how much longer this goes, they might not be able to survive either. I mean, this may be a an event we'll remember forever. Like, this is when all the game stores disappeared. It was 2020.
We already lost comic book stores. Any comic book stores that are still in existence are not selling comic books as their primary source of income. No. It's Magic the Gathering and other collectible card games as the main source, just like your game stores. They're making their money off of collectible card games, and that's what supports the other peripheral stuff. So, I mean, just like if you're a game company, an RPG company these days, and you write stuff for Pathfinder or for the OSR, you probably have to write for 5e too, because the money is in 5e. Look who's dropped in. The better half of the goal.
Oh, no.
She's checking up on you,
I was hoping
Mike.
she wouldn't find us. She finally found us after all these weeks. Damn it.
Yeah, Jen's checking up on you.
Yeah, there's the end of that fun time.
You must follow the corporate line now, Mike.
Oh, boy. I got to Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm going to pimp some Frog God products, I guess, later on. Just like I was going to do anyway, Jen. I promise. I was going to do that at some point. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that stuff. Did we need to pimp something too? I can't remember if we were.
No.
Oh, I want to throw a couple of things there while we're speculating on WotC. Just a couple of random things. I talked to Alex Kamer today. Hugs to you, yeah, sure. Hugs to you. Watch the knife in her hand as she hugs you. Talked to Alex Kamer. Total Gamehole Con virtual was a big success. They had over 1,500 people participate. So kudos to them. I'm glad they got that got that going. That's probably, I guess, the last big virtual con of the year. And then next year, of course, we have Virtual Con, Total Con, and Virtual Con, Gary Con coming up in February, March, and after that, I guess we'll see what happens. Hopefully, we're hopeful we could get a vaccine in and have something done with that.
Well, and here's the whole thing, and I'll touch on that after we look at David Thompson's comment here. Two of the RPG shops in my city both stock RPGs almost as an afterthought. Very small selections. One is mostly comics, board games. The other is mostly books and tacky merch. I'm afraid to even ask what tacky merch is. Third shop is a gamer's cafe, and a lot of stuff they sell smells of coffee. So I don't shop there. You know what? I'm not a coffee drinker either. I know it's a cop for 20 years, and I'm not a big donut person. I actually prefer crullers. Go figure that one out. But I would drink tea or hot chocolate on patrol. But here's, and of course now this derailed me for a second, but we're talking about virtual cons. And here's the thing, virtual cons lack that interaction. Yes, you can game. And I will say, virtual tabletop gaming is damn close to gaming at a table with your friends. I had no issues with that. It's been very satisfying. However, it does not replicate gaming at a convention. Because one thing, gaming at a convention, you game with strangers and you actually can make that connection, which you can't really make that connection with the VTT. I find with VTTs that the games I run with people that I have connections with, who I already know from online or whatever, run extremely well. They run like a well-oiled machine. And when you try to do like a convention-style game in a VTT, it's a lot harder than running a convention-style game in front of people. So that's part of it. But the other thing, too, is, again, conventions are a social activity. Now, Mike and I have already discussed some thoughts we have that we want to do to support conventions that are going digital. It will probably entail some additional nights of this very Talking Crit podcast.
We're talking next year when we go roll into Total Con and Gary Con.
Yeah, our idea that we are playing with is we'd like to get special guests. And they don't have to be A names, okay? But we certainly know a lot of B names and A names.
Yeah, I mean we're like C names, so yeah, we're happy to get B names.
I'm working to be a C plus. That's what I got out of high school with. You know, so I'm looking to at least be as good as I was in high school. But the thing is, we want to at least be able to replicate as best we can that feeling of socializing or getting to hear stories from people in the industry. That's the reason why I go to conventions. I go to conventions to see people in the industry and socialize and go to the bar at the hotel.
Yeah, David said here he's never been to a gaming con. They don't appear in my area. They don't interest me. But the thing that, look, I didn't go to a lot of. I used to go to comic cons a lot because I really love meeting the guys like George Perez or John Byrne. We're talking like the 80s here. Yep. Frank Miller. I love meeting those artist guys and just asking them questions. And how did you think of this idea? Or where'd you figure this out? Gaming cons didn't ever interest me that much, but once I started going, I was hooked because there's nothing like sitting there, after the dealer room's closed and you all go to the bar and you're just having a beer with a guy like Alan Hammock, and they just start telling you stories, and that's how the lore of our hobby gets passed on to these guys. They tell you stuff, and you're just like, what? You used to date Darlene? that's crazy, just, and so they start telling you stories, so I was the last time I was at GaryCon, I was talking to Darlene and Alan Hammock, and I apologize, I can't remember the third gentleman's name. He used to work for TSR, and Darlene said something, well, remember when you and I dated, Alan? I'm like, whoa, Alan Hammock and Darlene dated? Okay, I got to hear this story. And it was a great story too, because apparently Alan Hammock was Frank Minster's roommate, and so it gets it was just crazy. So, but this is just great. You get to hear these stories, and you get to hear, how'd you think of this idea, and what really went on. We a few years ago we had a TSR X, I will not reveal his name, under penalty of torture, who we got in the car and we were driving, and we said we took a long trip. Or not a long trip, it was a 2-hour trip with this person, and it was several of us. And so about an hour of the trip, when he couldn't escape, I asked him, I said, so tell me about Lorraine Williams. Because he was working there at the time before, when Gary was there, and then after Lorraine. So it's like, look, it's just us in the car, just us kids, let's hear some stories. And to his credit, he told us some really interesting tales about working under Lorraine. So that's why you get these guys. You get the guys. You get a couple beers in them. You don't know what they're going to throw out there. I mean, it's fun. That keeps the lore of the hobby going.
I remember sitting down with Dennis Astaire one evening, and Dennis and I were talking, and we were talking Swords with Relight, and we were talking Bunnies and Burrows. This is before the Bunnies and Burrows kickstarted. He was working on it, and finally, I looked at my watch, and I was like, Dennis, listen, I got to man the table at like 9 o'clock, and it's knocking on 4 a.m. and we're talking 4 a.m. Texas time. So this is like 6 a.m. New York time. Oh, dear. And I really need to get some rest. And we were both,
yeah,
it's just something very special about that. It's something you don't find necessarily online, but we'd like to do our best to duplicate that experience for our watchers and listeners.
Yeah, it's because that's one thing we're missing in the last years. We're missing these stories. We're missing to be able to hang out with these dudes. And speaking of Dennis, so the first year we had North Texas, he and Janelle Jaquays used to work together, and this was when Janelle was Paul, and so they had not seen each other in many years, and they used to work together at Coleco. And I can't remember who was whose boss. I think Dennis was Janelle's boss. And they were sitting in the the little kitchen area, and they started talking about the years at Coleco. And so me and two other people were just sitting there, and we didn't say a word for the next 2 hours. We just listened to them both talk. And they gave us all these stories and memories of working at Coleco back in the 80s. And it was just the most amazing thing. I wish I could have recorded. I should have pushed record on my... Well, I didn't have a cell phone back then, probably, so I don't know.
Right.
But push record, because it's just the most amazing talk, because they were just telling us, oh, do you remember this? Or remember we worked on, college football game and this happened? Or do you remember this? And then it was these great stories about, working in the video game industry. Because a lot of those TSR guys, people don't know, when they left TSR, they all went to work in video game industry. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Lawrence Schick worked for, did a lot of work with Skyrim. Not Skyrim, Morrowind, and some of it. Well, actually, he did some Skyrim stuff too. But he
the Elder Scrolls series.
Yeah, he did a lot of stuff with Elder Scrolls. Dennis Astaire, Jaquays, Sandy Peterson. Sandy Peterson basically wrote many of the levels of Quake. Was a huge. That's why Quake is so Call of Cthulhu-ish. If you ever played Quake back in the 90s. So yeah, it's really cool because they all went to work at video game in the video game industry. So there's just all these really interesting little bits of history you miss by not actually attending a con in person. Because as Eric says, you can still play games, these guys, and play online, but you don't have that after all the games are over and after the dealer room's closed, you all go to the bar and have a beer, or you go to the hamburger joint down the street and everybody has a burger. You just don't have that. And so hopefully next year, Eric and I may kind of bring that back a little bit. We're hoping to have some of the people, maybe, I don't know, maybe a Luke Gygax or who knows? Some of the people that work at Total Con. Maybe we can get Angela from Total Con to come on and talk to us. And just, tell us a few stories that we're just not going to get to hear because of COVID. And then that's the one thing that I mean, besides seeing people like Eric or other people, that we don't get to see very often, and it's like a family. Every 2 or 3 cons, you see the same people over and over again. So you're always like, hey, what's up? And you get that 10 minutes with them, 15 minutes with them. Well, now we have been 2 years or a year and a half without seeing these people face to face. And yeah, you keep in touch somewhat online, but it's not the same.
No.
And it's definitely not the same meeting these really, these legends of our hobby, not being able to talk to them. I mean, I miss my buddy Alan. Alan Hammock is a hoot, man. I miss that dude. He's great, and he's got some great stories. I mean, all these guys do.
Well, David makes a good point that he would be going to cons for the beer, grub, and chat. And I'll be honest with you, that's what I go for. I haven't played in a game at a convention in years. I run games at conventions, don't get me wrong, and I have a blast doing so. But I go to work the table for Frog God Games and meet and greet people from the hobby. And I'll tell you the truth, I enjoy meeting people that I don't know that want to come over and talk Frog God Games or seeing Frog God products for the first time. Or a lot of times I get TotalCon when I'm covering for Jeff, when Jeff goes to grab some food or use the restroom, and I'm covering his table, I get to talk up Jeff's stuff and talk to people. Have you run this one? Well, it's like, and I own this one. I've read it. I haven't had a chance.
There's a guy I miss, Jeff Delaney, man. I mean, for all we know, he's in prison now. He probably is in prison. I don't know, but no, he's a great guy. Well, I'm just a fun. I mean, we need to get Jeff on here. Jeff's a great guy to talk to. Oh my god, Jeff would be a lot of fun.
He
has an interesting background too. He was a metalhead death metal guy in high school, so he's got some great stories about that. He was way off the rails. He's got some great stories before he got into the gaming industry. But yeah, Jeff's awesome. I mean, yeah, and you miss all that. You miss being, at GaryCon every year we run across from Black Blade. We got to see all the Black Blade guys.
Oh yeah,
Alan and John. I mean, they were there, all day long. And Jeff, like I said, Jeff's next to us, and then the Barshes are behind us, and and then you get guys walk up that, I've been friends with Flint Dilley a long time. Lorraine Williams' brother, and used to work for TSR back in the day, and was friends with Gary. Hung out with Gary a lot when Gary was in Hollywood. And he walked by the booth one day. I was like, Flint, it's me, Mike. And we've been talking online for years. And I've been trying to get him to come guest at North Texas. Our schedules don't work out. I mean, he's big time. Let's face it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got a picture with him finally after all these years. It was so great talking to him. He's like, yeah, I'm here to see everybody. Because he's remembered fondly by a lot of the TSR people and by the Gygax brothers. And he's got some great stories. By the way, he came out with a book called he just came out with a book, Flint did, and it has, because Flint in the 80s worked on the G.I. Joe cartoon, the Transformers cartoon, did a lot of work, wrote quite a few scripts for those shows. But he also he did the Sagard series, and he did the Buck Rogers stuff. His family actually owns the Buck Rogers franchise. And he has a lot of stories about Gary, because when Gary was in Hollywood, he hung out with Flint all the time. And a lot of the stories I'd never heard. He would tell stories. And I was like, I'd never heard this from anyone. So I'm going to find the name of his book.
I found it just now. The Game Master.
That's it. The Game Master. Yeah.
My life in the 80s geek culture trenches with G.I. Joe, Dungeons and Dragons, and the Transformers. It's available in hardcover audio book.
I think they're all autographed. I think you autographed all the copies.
Amazon might not have all autographed
probably not.
But and it's available in Kindle format. Kindle might be my best choice. I can read in bed.
We can get Flint on this show one night. Flint's a hoot too. He's a great guy. But that's just the kind of thing that you don't get when you're not at a con. You don't get to run into these guys or run into, I remember going to a fancy sci-fi con in the early 90s, and I had a bunch of Clive Barker was a guest there, and I ran, and so he did a little talk or something. And I got there with my books, and he had to leave and go to someplace else. And I said, Barker or Mr. Barker, I really love your stuff. And is there any way I get you to sign my books? And they're like, and his handler's like, no, we gotta go. He goes, well, hold on, just walk with us. So for 5 minutes, we're walking. He's signing all the books of blood, all the Clive Barker stuff. We were just talking the whole time. It was the most awesome thing ever. I mean, it's just like, it was like me and him. I was sitting there with Clive Barker, just just chatting it up on the walk over to wherever he had to go next. To so that's just
we can get this to work. And like I said, we're gonna. As the year comes to a close, I believe TotalCon's in February, GaryCon is in March. If we can get this stuff synchronized, you'll be able to come in to the live stream and ask questions and make comments. And I know you don't want to be like, I don't give a fuck what Eric and Mike are saying. I want to hear what
I don't give a fuck what we say either most of the time.
Yeah, but
you're right.
I want to hear from your guy. We hope to be able to give you that chance. So that's something that's in the works.
Yes, we've talked about that. We will get that working in one way or another. So, and if North Texas has to go North Texas. I already talked with Doug. We're lucky that we're in June. We're hoping by June there'll be stuff figured out. But if not, we have to do what we did last year. We'll probably still do digital plus small in person like we did last year, maybe 60, 80 people. Right. But we'll might have to do something for North Texas too. And North Texas, I know I can get those guys on. They're losers. Doug.
Oh, there you go. It's gonna give them each. Give them each their own lap. You know what? They could be at the con and socially distanced.
Oh, definitely.
Because here you got your computer. You go in the corner there, put on the headset, and talk.
Oh, we can definitely get guys. If we have to do North Texas, we can get guys to talk to there. But yeah, we're looking at Total Con and GaryCon to begin with next year, and so we'll try to offer you something like that. We'll try to bring you some people. I mean, if nothing else, it'll be, and we'll try to ask the right kind of questions too. We know you want the dirt. You don't want the boring stuff. Yeah, okay, yeah. What's your last project you worked on, Mr. Rasmussen? And what was it like working for TS? No. We're gonna get down dirty with these guys. We're gonna get deep. We're gonna ask them the questions nobody asked.
Yeah, like Merle, did you dumpster dive at TSR and steal anything?
Who did you kill? You know how to kill. There's too much in here that. You must have killed somebody. I know you did. I'll tell you one thing funny about Merle that I always forget. Like Merle, he was really young when he worked at TSR. Yeah. I mean, you don't think that now you look at it, but he was really young. He's 20, 21. I mean, when he wrote Top Secret, he was actually pretty young. Now he looks like your favorite little grandfather now. He and his wife, when they go to cons, and looks like he couldn't hurt a flea. But I don't know, man. There's something dark about that guy. I don't know. There's something going on in Merle's head. There's something crazy. There's craziness in those eyes. Let me tell you.
Well, that's why when he runs a game, his wife has to be in the same room because she has to make sure he doesn't go crazy.
No, there's they do hang around together all the time.
He might actually act out the part of the GM and tell you, I'm sorry, you're dead. Let me take care of your death for you, by the way. It'll be relatively painless.
We'll get some of those guys. We'll get them on, but we'll get the guys that go to Total Con definitely, and GaryCon, and we got some other surprises here and there when it comes to con people. We're just hoping that things get somewhat back to normal next year because we're kind of entering into uncharted territory here in terms of cons being canceled not 1 but 2 years in a row. Yeah, that's very much uncharted territory. I mean, we're talking all the way back to World War II when you had stuff canceled. I mean, World War II was crazy. I mean, you had baseball teams that had just Joe Schmo off the street. I mean, we're talking professional baseball teams that had players that
you got two legs. You got 2 legs and at least one
pretty
hand?
much.
All right,
if you look at some of those rosters from 40 to 45, they were pretty scary. You had a bunch of old guys that were too old for the draft. Then you had a bunch of guys that just grabbed off the street. So
then we have a football game on Sunday where all 4 potential quarterbacks for one team.
Oh, that was the Denver. That was the Denver Saints debacle.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Their quarterback was their practice squad wide receiver.
Squad wide receiver.
He played
not even your wide receiver.
I think in high school. I don't know.
Right,
he threw one pass. He had one pass for 17 yards the entire game. That was
okay. There was a lot of the
quarterbacks
our college football team was a running game. And a lot of times we have the fullback line up as quarterback.
They just threw. I think they hiked. I saw part of it. They just hiked the ball back to the running back half the time because that guy was throwing some terrible passes out there. He only got picked off twice. I think Tony Romo had worse days than that, but he only got picked off twice. So, but yeah, so it's uncharted territory when it comes to conventions here because we just don't go 2 years without a con. I mean, it just doesn't happen. I mean, most cons, when they miss a year, the first thing you think is that con's in financial difficulty and probably not going to go on anymore. They're probably being canceled.
Right.
And, because cons have had to miss for various reasons every once in a while. And usually they're smaller cons. And because when they miss, every time you miss a con, you're basically losing a segment of your audience. You're becoming more forgotten. People forget about your con. That's why you want your con to go every year, and you want it to go at the same time every year. You want people to know that when March runs around, it's Gary Con. When June comes around, it's North Texas. When October, November comes around, it's a Gamehole Con, that kind of thing. And if you miss a year, that's like a death knell for your convention because nobody remembers you the next year. Like, oh, did you have a con once? Well, yeah, we only missed a year. Well, I don't remember. It's been 2 years now. Yeah, this is going to be really weird coming in next year. And especially if we have to miss a whole nother year, that's going to be very weird. Very, very strange.
I mean, like for Gary Con, it's going to be 2 years wiped off the books, really. And that's huge.
They did a good job last year with their online con with only 2 weeks to prepare. This year they've got a lot longer time, so I think they're going to be able to handle it okay. But people still miss being in person. But I think Gary Con will be okay because they do have the Gygax name to help them out quite a bit. I worry about some of the smaller cons that don't really have don't have any deep pocket. I mean, not that Gary Con has deep pockets, but just that they have a lot of name recognition.
Right,
and people want them to succeed.
They will be back, but yeah, you're right. The smaller conventions are the ones you got to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, Gen Con, they'll miss a year. I mean, it's going to suck, but unless they didn't save enough money, they got major financial difficulties. They'll be back. Now, what they're going to do, what they and big conventions like Origins and Spiel and stuff are going to do, I have no clue. Because Europe is looking as bad as we are right now. I mean, Spiel is, Spiel and Eschen, I mean, it makes Gen Con look like a garden party with a bunch of old ladies. I mean, that they have over 100,000 people every year at Spiel, but can you get that many people together? I mean, Germany has even stricter laws than the United States has right now. I mean, a lot of Europe is having huge relapses. So I don't know. It's gonna be really interesting missing a whole nother year of cons if that's what happens. And then you have also, I've been talking to some doctor friends of mine. Even if you have a vaccine out, that doesn't mean everybody just go hog wild and immediately start packing stadiums. To go to a Rolling Stones concert or whatever. Or Rolling Stones, that dates me. Taylor Swift concert. I mean, you can't just all just cram back in together. I mean, you still got to be careful, because not everybody's going to be vaccinated at the same time. They're talking about vaccinating first responders and doctors and emergency room people, to begin with. And so it may be a while before people like, you and I get in line to be able to get a vaccine.
Yeah, I mean, and I am, currently considered to be high risk, and I still don't know where that's going to fall in line with all this. And here's the other thing too: are you going to have conventions of the large type going? Well, yes, we're going to have Gen Con. Well, we're going to cut our attendance down to 50,000 this year, but you must show a proof of vaccination or show the proof that you were actually priorly exposed to COVID. And is that going to be something going forward?
That's good. Yeah, my wife and I talked about that. And my wife especially is very, very against show me your papers type stuff. And I'm maybe not as bad, but I still don't like the we must see your papers. I don't like that kind of shit when it comes to any part of my life. And so. Yeah, that's going to be a whole nother thing. What if your county says you have to do that? I mean, we have North Texas and Dallas County. What if Dallas County says you can have a convention, but you have to ask everybody there for their papers? Ugh. Then that befalls to us. Then we're the ones that have to sit there and be the bad guy and say, we're sorry, but we're going to have to ask for your vaccination papers for you to get in the con. and then they punch me in the or Doug in the mouth. I mean, it's not our problem. We're just doing what the county says we have to do.
Right.
It's the same thing with like this, handgun laws. I mean, there's a lot of counties that say, you have to, have your 306 documentation on the wall when you walk in Texas like that. So when you walk in, there has to be a thing on the wall that says handguns are not allowed in here. And if you don't have that on there, you can walk with a handgun. I mean, if you do not have that on the wall, you walk with a handgun. Now, what happens a lot of times is that, a county may require a business to have that. Maybe the business doesn't want it, but they don't have any choice. And somebody's may walk in and start yelling at the person. And they're like, look, an example is Whataburger. Well, Whataburger does not allow handguns on the premises. But if you talk to a lot of people that own Whataburger, they may not disagree with Second Amendment rights, but their hands are tied. Corporate says you cannot have people in your store, that have concealed weaponry. And so the same thing happening at conventions. You may say, look, I don't really care, but we're being asked by the state or county that or city that we have to see your papers before you can come in.
I'm not going to give anybody legal advice, but if you are carrying concealed legally, nobody should have any idea if you're properly carrying that you have a concealed weapon on you, because that defeats the whole purpose of having a concealed weapon. So I'm not giving legal advice by saying that. I'm just saying that if your weapon is so poorly concealed that the moment you walk into a venue or a retail establishment or a bar, the first thing people go is, "Are you a cop? You're not carrying properly."
Oh, Sean, yeah, you're right. So 3006 is concealed carry. 307 is open carry. Yeah, but yeah, if that's on the door, I mean, my partner Doug, he's a huge gun guy, carries usually 2-3 guns every time he goes anywhere. He will obey that signage. We've walked up to the mall before and seen the signage on the wall, had to walk all the way back to the car and put his guns up because I mean, even though as you say, it defeats the purpose, it's still against the law. I mean, if he's found with a concealed handgun in there, he's breaking the law. He can be ticketed or arrested. So yeah, and the same may be true. What if they say that about vaccination? They may say, look, if you have to present that, and if we find somebody in there that's not been vaccinated, we're going to cite you. And so then you're like, well, okay, well then now we're having to enforce vaccination laws. It might be crazy.
Rough. It's rough. I mean, Ticketmaster was trying to put out a blanket vaccination requirement, and then then they backed off. Yeah, but they're allowing venues to require such.
Yeah, they basically they drop kicked it. They said we don't want to do that. We're gonna let venues, that's the chicken shit way out. But I mean, honestly, that's the best way to do it.
Right.
I mean,
well, here's the thing too. If Madison Square Garden says we want people vaccination, then I don't have a constitutional right to go see a Rangers game. I know.
No.
So if you're saying that, or to go see Postmodern Jukebox, which I had tickets for back in October, and now they're punted to sometime next year. I don't have a constitutional right to go there. So requiring me to be vaccinated is, again, not a big deal. Now, if you require me to be vaccinated before, I don't know, going into the post office or something like that, that's something different. Mm-hmm. But to an entertainment venue, again, it's a totally optional part of my existence. I don't see an issue with that.
Well, let's see. Well, what did proof of vaccination? Okay, but here's my only issue with it is that why am I having to enforce state local laws? It shouldn't be on me, but it's going to be. It's going to be on me personally because I run a con with Doug. It will be on us to have to tell some poor schmo, no, you can't come in because you left your vaccination slip at home.
Right.
And that's not even getting past the people. There's people that my wife's one of them that have issues with Guillain-Barré syndrome. For those who don't know, that can be activated by a vaccine. My wife hasn't had a flu vaccine shot in probably a decade or longer because she's high risk for developing Guillain-Barré syndrome. Her mom had it, and then her mom caught it from a vaccine. So what are we supposed to say when somebody says, well, I can't get vaccinated because I have now, I talked to a doctor today, actually, online, and they're so far right now they think that the COVID vaccine is not going to activate Guillain-Barré syndrome because it's very technical, but it deals with a different kind of antibody.
Okay.
But let's say that it does.
Right.
So my wife's not going to get she's not going to get a COVID vaccine. I mean, and a lot of people won't get a COVID vaccine, so we just tell them tough luck. I mean, you can't. Sorry, I mean,
Well, you know,
you can't get a vaccine, but
it's going to be part of the
I don't
agreement
like
when
to
you
be the
sign up
police
for
officer here. I don't want to be policeman Mike and tell people you can or can't come to my con because you don't have a vaccination slip.
Here's the thing, and you're talking to somebody who did not believe in using Easy Pass for years because I didn't like the idea of the government knowing my travel. You know, not that I was paranoid, but
Right.
I worked in internal affairs. I have seen what Easy Passes can get people.
Oh, and you know what information you can get. Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing. Now, Rich and I, we went down to our local pub. I guess was it last Wednesday or last Sunday? We went at noon, right when they opened. There was one other person in there beside the server. We sat in the back. We call it the confessional because you got walls on three sides. And but when you walked in, you had to have your temperature taken, which is like having a gun put to your head, literally. Mm-hmm. And you had to sign a book with your name and telephone number and the number of people in your party, because this is all for tracing in case there's an outbreak that's linked to the location.
Sure.
And instinctively, I am like, I don't want to put my fucking name in this book, but I do, but I don't like it.
You see the, you understand the necessity of it, but it still gives you a little something twinges in your head saying, I don't know about this.
It brings me up to that point. So again, going down to the pub is an optional activity, whereas maybe food shopping isn't. So food shopping shouldn't have that requirement, and it doesn't. But if it's an option, I can see why. I don't have to like something to understand why it's being done. I don't like it. I do understand it. I mean, listen, you can't go to a doctor's office these days without a cell phone. You got to, in the case of my endocrinologist, you got to call from the parking lot. Hey, it's Eric. Yeah, I'm here for my 215. Ask a shitload of questions about COVID. No, I have not left the state or the country in the last 2 weeks. No, I have feeling in all my extremities. No, I have not lost my taste of smell or taste. Yada, yada, yada. Yep. Okay. Then you get upstairs, and it's
the same question.
And the door is fucking locked. And I'm like, and there's a note in the door. Now, it's the first time the door's been locked. I've been going now monthly for a couple of months. It's like, I guess somebody was an ashlook, an asshole, and decided to ignore whatever protocols they had and just bar. I was like,
rolled right in.
So now I gotta go. If you don't have a cell phone, how do you? And you can't find a payphone within the county of Queens at this point. So wait a minute. Excuse me, can I borrow your phone? I know it's COVID, but I need to breathe and spit on your phone so I can call my doctor.
I loved it. So that's with my doctor. Had to answer all those questions online. Then they texted me. I have to answer all the questions again. Then when I got there, they asked me all the questions. So this is the third time. But I mean, I guess what are you gonna say? I mean, you're like, okay, I mean, I understand why you have to do it because maybe in the meantime you developed symptoms. So they want to know that, okay, I know we asked you on Monday if you had symptoms, and we asked you again on Tuesday, but we're going to ask you again on Wednesday because you're here. And I understand that, but it's annoying. I mean, but that's part of what's going on in 2020, right? Everything's annoying. Everything's a little trouble. I'm wearing a mask is annoying, but we wear masks because it's a small imposition. It's of all the things we can do, it's probably the least invasive or difficult. I mean, we all grumble about it. I don't got to put my mask on. But, I mean, we have an elevator here at the condo I'm staying at, and you're supposed to wear masks in the elevator, which, if I'm the only person in the elevator, I'm not going to wear a mask, but I have my mask there. Right. So somebody steps on, I put my mask on. So, I mean, you put your mask on for 15 seconds. I mean, however long it takes to go to the fifth floor to the first floor, but you just do it and you grumble about it. You're like, oh, stupid. I had to put my mask on for 25 seconds or whatever, but you just do it because that's where we're at right now, right? I mean, the
Right.
small if that's the least you have to do, that's
And again, this world of COVID has killed in-person gaming. I mean, for the most part, we're not gaming in people's houses. And I think in New York State, if you're mixing households, you have to wear a mask. I know in Pennsylvania you do. I heard that. So if you're mixing households, everybody in the household must wear a mask. So who's going to be gaming for 4 hours with masks on? That's not happening.
Well, actually, the last time we were in a game in October before I went on vacation, we had a game at the warehouse, and we did mask up. We masked up, and you see the warehouse. I don't know. Have you been to the warehouse? You've been to the warehouse, right? It's pretty. I mean, it's pretty spaced out.
You got
so
room.
There was
space.
3 of us around a very gigantic table, and we were wearing masks.
Okay.
It wasn't. I mean, it was just awkward because you're like, "What did you say?" I can't hear you. I have a mask on. That's why you can't hear me.
It's like stop being a Charlie Brown teacher and speak.
Yeah, if you had 10 players,
no, it's not working.
No, everybody with a mask on, you wouldn't be able to hear anything. Yeah, that's not good. Yeah, but so I guess we'll get past this. But in the meantime, Eric and I will hopefully entertain you enough to.
And we're not going to do a soft shoe and a tap dance, but. We will be here with funny stories and hopefully entertaining guests. We should have guests for the next 2 episodes of Talking Crit.
And we have a long list of people who still want to come on too.
You know what? And talking about Merle from earlier, I did an interview with Merle, like 2 years ago, here's the question. I think we can get Merle. The only question is, will he be able to actually log in? I had to interview him over the phone and record it.
You're like,
yeah, so that's the problem when you start hitting generation 1 of the movers and shakers in the RPG industry. Some of them have moved on with technology, and some still believe computers are the size of those.
Some are really good at it. I mean, some are better than I am.
Oh yeah, no, I've seen that too.
Look, I always say if Bill Webb can do it, anybody can do it. Bill Webb runs an online game every week, and so I'm like, if he does it, it can't be hard because the man does not know how to use a cell phone. So if he can, and he runs an online game, so if he can do it, anybody can do it.
Is Little John his second?
He probably does. You know what? I didn't think about it. Johnny probably sets the whole thing up for him, and then
John,
says,
don't go far. I'll double your allowance.
But no, he runs a Zoom game every week. So I mean, if he's doing it, that's look. I wasn't gonna be on the last Frog God game day, but as Zach said to me, Bill runs a game. You have to. I'm like, you're right. If Bill does it, I got to do it because Bill can barely work a cell phone. So yeah, but it was, and that was fun. And we'll have another Frog God game day coming up next year. We'll talk about that as we get closer. Speaking of Frog God, let me throw in a pimp real quick here.
We have better pimp or Jen.
Book of Taverns Volume 3 is already funded. We have Book of Taverns Volume 1 and 2. What it is it gives you 1 or 2 taverns. Or actually gives you, it's not 1 or 2, it gives you 2 or 3 taverns, and they're fully detailed, and you can just drop them in your campaign. Say, okay, I need a tavern. And they all have a different hook to them, a different little quirky thing, and so they have little hooks built around them or stories. And so
their quality because I had nothing to do with them.
They're really good. I don't know who wrote let me see who wrote the 2 taverns in this one. Lion Rampant by Chris Jones and Four Winds by Chris Jones wrote both of them.
Right.
So, but yeah, they're really good. This will be the 3rd one, but it's up right now. Indiegogo. It's going to be there another couple weeks, so check it out. Book of Taverns Volume 3. I think I did my Frog God Games duty now.
You did your God. The point is,
so if Jennifer's still listening, I hope you give me a thumbs up. Jen's one of my devilettes also for the Midnight Auction. I know she likes to be known as a devilette. That's probably high on her list of bullet points to be known as.
It's a qualification.
Bad Mike's devilette for the Midnight Auction. But I think that's the only thing Frog God has going right now as we roll into the end of the year. And we should have the Swords. Hey, pretty soon we're going to have the Sword Wizardry box sets.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm
excited about that. We'll have to do a show on that when we get those. Although we don't do reviews and stuff, but we could still probably
Oh,
pull it out, look at it, and flip through
you'll
it.
see me. I might have to turn off the virtual background for that one, because when like when I hold up my bottle of actually, it's just showing pretty good.
Is that winter? Is that winter?
This is Winter Jack. Hold on, let me get the right side. Hold on.
You know what? I forgot. You know what? It's Winter Jack time again. I can't wait.
So,
oh my
just
gosh,
a quick personal update. So, here's the deal. Since I am, nice, happy type 2 diabetic, and after my congestive heart failure, I wasn't drinking the beer. So my beer that I had from my beer tender or my beer mini keg deal, all those 60 half gallons all went skunky. I just drained them today.
Oh, no.
And I realized I can't get light beer for it. So, and the small craft beer I was getting for it, it's just not feasible for me to be able to drink in anything more than a half glass at a time. So I bit the bullet and I said, it's got to go. So instead, I got a Keurig that will be right next to me by my desk and my bottle of Winter Jack. So I can take a nice Irish tea or a chai tea and put it in my mug and be able to be slightly intoxicated during the presentation. I hope it doesn't get me banned on YouTube or
always
Facebook.
Like a slightly intoxicated.
For talking about intoxicants, because apparently talking about 28 millimeter miniatures.
Oh my gosh! For those who don't know, Tom Tullis got banned. He got a short ban from Facebook. Is not your friend, folks. Facebook has an algorithm that pulls out any mention of animals, guns, selling people. I mean, anything that sounds weird. They have it's not a human being. It's an algorithm. I've listed stuff on RPG Auction before, and if it has a picture of an animal, a face, or a gun on the surface, it says, this has been pulled because you're trying to sell a human being or an animal. Like, no, I'm not. I'm trying to sell a book that has a picture of a human being on it. And usually when you submit it for review within like an hour or 2 hours, they throw it back and say, yeah, you're fine. But apparently Tom mentioned a 28 millimeter miniature.
Yes, Fat Dragon Games, by the way, just so you know who he is.
Also the millimeter of a favorite gun bullet, and he got
I don't even know the 28
millimeter. Yeah, 28 millimeter, and it got flagged. He got banned, and he had the ban overturned after a few hours. But yeah, look. If you're not on MeWe, get on MeWe. I mean, I don't post on MeWe as much as I really should. I don't post at all on MeWe, but I have a MeWe account because you know what? It's always good to have a backup because Facebook's getting nuts now. I mean, if they will not hire human beings to do vetting, and if they're going to rely on AI and algorithms, they're going to someday you're going to get banned for nothing, for just for saying that. You're going to gun the motor on your car. They're going to say, "Oh, you mentioned guns," and
damn it, Mike, you've probably already gotten this podcast banned.
Oh God,
gun damn it!
Are you going to talk about your 7.62 millimeter miniatures? And they're going to say, "Oh, that's a gun." So anyway, just be careful because. Facebook is not your friend nowadays.
Yeah. I have to remember too. It was Tom Tullis, and he probably should be banned.
Tom Tullis should have been banned for any number of things.
By the way, that's another guest we should bring on the show. Although we might suffer a banning for bringing him on the show, but Tom would be we might have to censor him.
Yeah.
Just.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, he might break the algorithm of anything.
They'd be like, oh man, you can't talk about it. But he wasn't really talking about what you think he was talking about.
He runs a great miniature company, and he posts the memes that would take your mom. Your mom would ground you if you posted those memes. Put it that way.
In a heartbeat,
because they're
child in a heartbeat.
They're too extreme for even me. I sometimes I see it like, what the hell? Oh, that must be a Tom. Yep, Tom Tullis posted that. Yep, because that's the taste, and that is so bad I can taste it from here. It's awful.
Yeah, we have to tell Tom. Tom, you made the podcast.
Yes. Wait, yeah, we're gonna get Tom. Tom's another one that we can probably get on here because he loves this. He loves to hear himself talk, so he'll be great.
Oh God, you won't be able to shut him up. But he is good people, and If he rubbed you the wrong way, it's probably because he walked up behind you.
But we have potential guests, or we have guests for the next 2 shows, which will be great because Eric and I are tired of talking just to each other all the time. We don't know this, but or maybe you do know it. We're extremely lazy. We just soon get on here and let some guest talk the whole time and just sit back and just you just talk.
It's like have Pex with us at the gaming booth with Pex can run it, and we'll just Pex
whatever.
We're gonna be talking our gaming shit and plans and stuff. You just keep on selling those books. We'll wait for people.
Do we cover everything do we have anything else we need to cover of all the items we had?
I think we covered it all, man. I do think we did a pretty good job.
It seemed like we missed something we were talked about.
Oh, we always miss something because here's the thing. There's so much going on in industry, but some of it reaches like tier 1 and very little reaches tier 2. And a lot reaches tier 3. And usually tier 3 you kind of go.
So when is your Joe the Lawyer? We can talk about Joe the Lawyer show next week. Then you're going to do your.
Well, we're going to bring Joe in next week, and then that Friday, Joe and I should be kicking off the new podcast, which will be on the same feed. So if you're listening to Talking Crit, which is every Wednesday, hopefully you're also listening to the mainstream, the Tavern Chat podcast.
You got to listen. Tavern Chat podcast is great because it's so cool because it's so. Every day you come with another one. So if I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in that. Oh, I'm interested in that one. So you're bound to hit 3 or 4 a week that you're like, I got to listen to that one.
And I like to keep short. I've heard people go, I don't like the podcast because I can't always listen for 30 minutes. Well, first off, if you're listening to this, obviously that's not your problem. Mike and I are usually lucky to get out of here in 90. But when I'm doing Tavern Chat, and it's just, me, if I'm not doing a fireside with an interview, 10 to 15 minutes generally tops, and I think that's the sweet point. If you have a short commute to work or you're going to go for a short walk, pop it in. You're not stuck for a long time. I could obviously do a weekly podcast and talk longer, but I'd rather do daily and keep them shorter. But sure. And of course, we do Gamers Health. That comes out on Friday nights. That's Rach and myself. So the game plan is with Joe and I, second and fourth Fridays, we're going to record Friday night on this YouTube and Facebook stream, and then I'll put it up on Saturdays. So there you go.
Great. Well, next week we will be here with Joe the Lawyer, and if he doesn't show up, we'll sue him, and we'll hire another lawyer to Joe the Lawyer.
Yeah, just so you know, we have lawyers that we also know. So yes, we can have our lawyers speak to Joe the Lawyer.
Joe's a great guy. He's been in the gaming circles for a long time. I don't think I've ever talked to him personally, so this will be fun for me. I've talked to him a lot online, and he used to have a blog that I read religiously. Does he still do his blog or not?
I don't think so. He does an occasional podcast.
He did it for quite a few years back.
His blog, Joe the Lawyer's Wondrous Imaginings.
It was a great blog. Yeah, great blog. My 3, and we could probably do this as a whole, talk, but my 3 initial blogs when I came into the OSR, Grugnardia, obviously, James Mao, Rob Conley's Bat in the Attic. Great one.
And Joe the Lawyer's Wondrous Imaginings. Those were the 3 that really secured me in the OSR. Chicago Wiz had a blog out back then. I would read that pretty regularly. But those were my top tier, the ones that I went to. And oh my God, look, Joe has another one out. I got to read it. Or oh, look, more. And then I found things at Gothridge Manor and stuff like that, and it just exploded. But then a lot of the bloggers have moved on to podcasting too. So it's good.
We had a whole show about that. So about the way back 10 years ago when the blogs were king, man. That was Jeff Raintz had his blog. Remember that? And Zach Smith had a blog. They hit it with Max or whatever. I mean, those were huge. The blogosphere was gigantic. Now, of course, podcasts where everybody went to, but yeah, the blog stuff was huge back then. That's how, that's how I kind of got into this whole, hey, there's other people out there playing D&D and writing stuff about, and that's where I first saw Eric's stuff too, because Eric had a blog back then. That's how I caught his stuff.
I still do.
You had a police blog back then. You remember that?
It's still up there. Saturday night special with Night.
Saturday special. I forgot all about that. Yeah.
Night spelled as your medieval knight with a K, And .blogspot.com. I haven't updated it in years, but I'm still proud of what I wrote there. Some really good real world experiences of a rookie cop. So catch up on it. Good stuff. All right, folks. Mike and I have already touched upon COVID, so we're not going to, beat you to death. But common sense, use it.
Wear your mask. Small position, very small thing to do.
And as always, be safe, be well. God bless. Roll those dice, roll them well. If you want to, by the way, I almost forgot. I'm not pimping this. I don't make money off it at all, but they come in assorted colors.
Oh yeah, that's what I was.
There we go. That's what we almost forgot.
Yes.
So these dice, and that's the purple ones. Here's the blue ones. If I can get this in the front of the camera.
Whoa, hold on.
Oh, whoa! I just blocked you all out. There. Well,
they're
gray, but they're really blue. These dice are available at Dollar Tree. I believe it's RPG dice.
Are they $1?
They are $1 a set.
You cannot beat that.
It's a set of 7 dice. Now, here's the deal. If you have it delivered to the store, delivery is free. If you have it delivered to your house, there is a cost to ship them. I think the cost to ship these were like, I don't know, $8 or something like that. I got 24. So I have 24 sets of dice. If you've gamed with me at conventions, I like to give shit away. So when we finally start doing face-to-face conventions, I will have dice to bring with me. But at $1 set, you can't go wrong. Show Dollar Tree that we're worth it, because maybe we'll get some dollar minis and shit pre-painted. There you go. Maybe we'll get D&D books in the $1 book bin. Ooh,
Tasha's whatever the hell might be in there for $1.
Tasha's vile bag of shit. Could be in the $1. We didn't even. This is stuff that that was rejected by the Dungeon Guild, but we're gonna throw it into a book and sell it to you. So, see.
All right, folks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We are out of here. Laters.
Later, folks.